Welcome to another episode of the Tower 26 Speed Racer Podcast. I'm Jim Lubinsky here once again with Coach Gerry Rodriguez. Hey, Coach, how you doing? 75 degrees and sunny today. What's up?
What voice is that one? You're spending
It's
a lot of time with the
it's
kids
that
lately,
radio
huh?
announcer voice. But you listen, hi, I'm Chet Kopic from CBS News. The hell got this nasally voice? I must learn that in radio school or something. What's up, buddy? How you doing? It's good to be back on
I'm
there.
good. Good to be back. Yeah.
It's almost like we just didn't have a 1 hour meeting with all of our athletes. We're warmed up.
That's the beauty of these podcasts. We come in right after our weekly 1 hour meeting, 1 hour FaceTime, real-time meetings.
That's right.
In person.
That's right. Hey, we got a studio full. We got Andrew here. Andrew Talansky back in studio with us.
Happy to be here, Jim. I really wanted more time with you. This will be four hours, I think we'll spend.
Yeah, we had an hour and a half this morning. And the funny thing is, every week you're looking more and more like a radio personality / podcast personality. I mean, look at you. You're on your stool. You got your pro mic, your pro stand. Look at all this. So
we all strive in Tower 26 to emulate you, Jim. So little by little.
Look at me. I got all this crap behind me. You look so clean and fresh. And man, maybe you're going to take over this thing. But also with us, Emily. Trophies. Speaking of taking over, Emily, future of Tower 26. Emily, how you doing? Back in studio.
Good. How are you? Glad to be back.
I'm tired. I just spoke for an hour earlier. I only got to speak for another hour. So I'm looking for Gerry. Like Andrew was in the hot seat last week. You're in the hot seat this week. You excited?
I'm excited. Last week was a good episode. I enjoyed Andrew's history and listening, his background and starting as your career as late as you did. I mean, pretty phenomenal results.
Yeah, it was a good one. We learned a lot from that, and we're going to learn a lot from this one. But hey, it's our 100th episode, Jer. Congratulations. We made it to 100. Is that pretty astounding or what?
Well, we decided, as you recall, a couple of years ago that not to just do episodes. In fact, I'd listened to a number of podcasts over the years and they just kept doing episodes and some were not, I found to be not real relevant. And I wanted to make sure that when we do an episode, there was education to it. So it wasn't a matter of just put episodes out to put them out. Let's put them out to make them relevant. So I know we don't have a lot of episodes compared to some others, but I want to make sure that what we do is very, very educational.
That's what it's about. Spreading that education. Let's reminisce on our 100 episodes. What episode sticks out to you as one that maybe you learned from, you were entertained by? I mean, obviously I entertain you every episode, but what's one that you can recall that, hey, that one, I really like that one. I really enjoyed it. I might go back and listen to it again.
Almost whenever we interviewed Cam Worth, it was always entertaining. Cam's such a personality. And in fact, we were just talking about him regarding Paris-Roubaix and running the half marathon after doing that incredible race this weekend. So interviews with Cam, always terrific. Probably one of the most interesting interviews, it wasn't an interview, one of the interesting episodes was when we did a comparison of swim strokes between Lucy Charles and her husband, Reese. And, one is very beautiful, Reese, very elegant, pool polished swim stroke. And then Lucy, this more higher cadence, bumpier type, terrific open water stroke. And, from a looks perspective, they look obviously like you'd think he's a lot faster, and he is in the pool. But she puts the wax on him pretty well in open water. So I thought that episode was one, highly educational, and the one that got us the most views, downloads, listens, comments, and so on. I think a couple 100,000 views on Facebook.
Yeah, if you look at the Facebook numbers, that's for sure. Emily, what do you got? What's your episode that you can recall that sticks out to you that you think maybe some listeners might not listen to, or you think they should go back and listen to again? Come on, off the top of your head.
Oh man, you're really putting me on the spot. Go to Talansky.
Andrew Talansky, you're new. I'm not going to put the pressure on you, but I'll go to me. Our Kona episode. I know neither you two, Emily or Andrew, were there, but we did it live in Kona. We had Triathlon Taryn videoing us during it. We were looking out at the Pacific Ocean, right? Yeah, Pacific Ocean. Talking about details of the course, which we just swam the day before, giving all the Kona athletes all the ins and outs of the course. I think from a scenery standpoint, that was the best. I love looking at Rodriguez on all these shows, but from a scenery standpoint, looking out at the ocean while we recorded, amazing. But the information we gave to the athletes who were live in audience for that podcast, and that's evergreen. That's what we're talking about. They can go back and listen to that episode and learn from it every single year before Kona.
Yeah, super relevant episode. Now that you say that, because we gave specific demarcations at the 1,000-meter mark. Here's what you're going to see, and how far you should be off a landmark, and so on. I remember it being very, very well guided.
Yeah, that was a fun one. But our most listened to podcast, the most downloaded via our provider Libsyn, was podcast number. Let me bring it up. There it is again. Podcast number 69. You're doing it all wrong. So the most downloads, podcast 69. Maybe it's in the title. Gerry came up with that title. Maybe it's because of the title, but you're doing it all wrong is the most downloads.
You know, it's interesting. As a former magazine owner, you know, we had to write copy for the covers. I didn't do it, but you had copywriters that did it. And it's when you put out sort of titillating type, you know, hooks like that, that what's gets, you know, today call it clickbait, right?
Yeah.
You get people into the thing to look, to read, to listen, whatever it may be. So that title may be the reason that it did it. And sometimes we just have boring titles in the sense of just talk, you know, name the title of what we're actually talking about, and we should probably try to make those titles a little sexier.
Well, that's a good point for our least listened to episode, and it's it's tails below everything else, and that is episode number 35, sharks, how to keep them away. Nobody wants to hear about sharks. They don't want to think about sharks. I don't want to think about sharks. I don't want to listen to that episode again. So episode 35, sharks, how to keep them away. And I think we had the shark bands, the guys who own shark bands, on to talk about that, talk about their product and how that. So that's our least listened to episodes.
Well, I think it's a relevant episode if you want safety. And if you, when as a listener, when you go out to swim in open water, I'm sure your spouses, your significant others, family members would love to have you wearing that product. So listen to that episode.
Yeah, a bunch of shark bands and shark poop. All right.
I wanna listen to it. That was
with your one of your best episodes, the Kona one, where you talk about the course, because there can be sharks. It's the deep blue sea.
Okay, Emily, come to your favorite podcast. Stop siding with Rodriguez. All right.
Okay.
Brown nose is what we used to call them.
You want me to say my favorite?
Yeah. What's your favorite?
Well, I think when we talk about the catch, it was recent in
very, very highly downloaded podcast as well. So
episode 94. I mean, it's not like super sexy. It's, you know, the setup part, but it's one of the most important parts of our swim stroke. And it works well with what we're going to talk about today, kind of that sharpening phase and the power in the stroke. You need to have a good setup.
And here it is. I thought you were going to talk about when we interviewed you.
You didn't interview. I don't think I've been interviewed.
We did. We did a little 10-15 minute Emily intro many episodes back.
Remember how I just referred to Emily wanting to take over, how she just blended the subject of the episode into her answer? That's a good host. That's what a good host does. He works it all together. Emily, amazing blend there. I love it. Gerry, what do you got? You're about to say something.
No, we're good.
So the way we structure these, just so you know, we do our little intro like we're doing here. We're talking about the best episodes or whatever we may talk about that week. Talansky wanted to talk about Paris-Roubaix, but I said no. Next week we'll talk about that. Then we move into the meat of the episode, whether it's content like we're talking about this week, educational content, or an interview where we learn something from a guest that we have on the show. We go into our workout of the episode. That's typically a swimming workout. Last week we did a cycling workout. Andrew brought you that one because of our new cycling plan that we're launching here very soon. And then we get into our swim video analysis, which we're going to try and do every episode. So we have a swim video analysis to complete on this one. And then we get to the questions of the episode before we wrap it up. So just so you guys know what to look out for on these shows, that's kind of our structure going forward. Gerry, you approve of that?
Format, simple, and
that's it.
Keep it rolling. Yeah.
And we're selling high value ad space between each. No, we're not. We don't sell ad space. So let's get into what the content of this episode. Emily already introduced it. Emily, what are we going to talk about on this episode?
We're going to talk with Gerry and get really into kind of our sharpening phase, which leads us into our open water skill building phase. And why do we do the sharpening phase? Why it's going to help you in your triathlon and open water swimming.
So Gerry, very good. Gerry, let's talk about season progression. Like why, and I know you've covered this in plenty of the episodes, probably the ones we just brought up, but why did you structure because we have our swim subscription plan, which follows the workouts that we do at our Pacific Palisades, El Segundo pools. We have the swim subscription plan at coaching.tower26.com. And you built this season-long progression that goes through the different phases of training, leading to the best machine that could be built long-term, as opposed to just quick, 10-week training program, getting ready for this race. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts behind why you built what you built before we get into the phases that we're about to enter in this season?
Yeah, sure. So any coach that's actually has some experience with coaching recognizes that you need to have sort of a longer-term vision, a plan that's multiple seasons, and then you back that up to the season you're in, and then you back that up to shorter time frames to be able to bring out the best in an athlete. The thing with triathlon, and having been involved in the sport from the early 80s, when you go to races, there were 150 people at a race only. And back then, races were typically just in the summer months of the year, and this is in the Northern Hemisphere, right? So most of the races, June, July, August back then, and then the calendar started spreading out, and now we have races 12 months a year. But if you really look at the race calendar in North America is typically heavily loaded towards the months of June, July, August, September. You got those that's your big bulk, your bell-shaped curve. That's the fat part of the curve, 102 standard distributions out from the center, the majority of your races. So we can't have a training program, or we shouldn't have a training program let's set some guidelines first. If you want longevity in the sport and to be able to utilize the sport as part of your overall general fitness and well-being, and to have balance in your life, you need to look at how you set up your year as a whole, one giant unit. What does the entire year look like, and not just what next week looks like, or what I'm going to do for my race that's coming up in 8 weeks, as an example. So I set up a plan based on an entire year on where the bulk of races occur, which is in that fat part of the curve. So we start off with, and we have 5 phases, which is really 4 phases. And in fact, Emily brought it up that we're in the sharpening phase right now. But the sharpening phase, you could look at that almost as a plug-in or an attachment to our foundation phase. And the foundation phase is what we're wrapping up right now, or that big bulk training phase. So our program lays out the year starting with recovery and technique. And typically, any decent coach has to say, hey, I got to pull the plug here in the season. You just can't train. And Andrew Talansky can tell you this as an elite former professional cyclist. You cannot go balls out 12 months a year. You can, for how long? Maybe a year or 2, and then your career is over. Too many injuries, burnout, and so forth and so on. So we need to have a stopping place for the season. So we typically use the end of October for that. We begin the new year November 1st, and we go through a recovery phase / technical phase. We do a whole lot of teaching of mechanics and so forth and so on. And then we roll into the beginning of the year when everyone's sort of goal setting, the normal time, January, and we start what we call our foundation phase. You can call that your endurance phase, your base building phase. There are all these different names, but the key thing is it's your platform where you're building overall your body resilience, your structural integrity, the foundation, your aerobic base, even your anaerobic base. Also, all of these systems are being built out over these 4 or 5 months. And within that main frame, and that's the biggest phase that we have, at the end of that phase, we do what's called a sharpening portion of it. In cycling, in running, in any sport that you go to the Olympic Games, you'd call that sort of the taper phase, right? Where the body's getting tapered down and sharpened up to a high performance level. So no different than any collegiate swim coach would do, or collegiate running coach would do for their athletes. No different than your hockey coach, Jim. When you played professional hockey, you have a big training phase, but when you got ready for your big games, there would be more skill-specific things and some rest period getting ready for your big game, right? So same here. We have this big phase, and then we do a sharpening portion. And the reason we do it is to measure the improvements that our athletes have made from when they started off that endurance phase or skill base building phase at the beginning, because we do a couple of time trials in the beginning sort of measuring blocks. Okay, gives you an opportunity to look at where you're starting off. We do a 1K and a 100 swim time trial, and then we do it again several months later at the end of our sharpening phase. So that's how we lay out that first portion.
So can I show a sharpening workout here, and you can say why this is a sharpening workout? So this is from coaching.tower26.com. This is one that our athletes have done in years past, but so this happens typically mid-May, a workout like this. So why would this be a sharpening workout?
Well, let's see. We're in the, so we always, and by the way, you'll notice here as those who are viewing this this episode, you'll notice there's a portion that says skip for 60-minute workouts, because some of these workouts many of our A workouts are longer than 60 minutes. So you have to trim it, you would trim, but we do a lot of pulling in our workouts, and that's for a couple of reasons. Always technique based with pulling. And then that main set, if you notice, there's some, the distances are shorter. It's in this case, it's a handful of 50s, 8 of them, and they're 25. Jim, I can't actually see those. 25 fast, 25 easy.
25 fast, 25 easy.
25 easy. Yep.
Quick turnover, swimming fast.
Yep.
But the reason I brought up this workout to put you on the spot, it was kind of improv. I knew you could answer a question on any of these, but as you guys see, it has everything in there, right? It has technique. You're using snorkel, your fins. You have foundation with the progressive the 800 pull, the progressive 100s. But then in the main set, we really get to that sharpening, like Gerry's talking about. We work that fast turnover, then we recover for a 25. Then we work the fast turnover, then we recover for a 25. So we're not necessarily building a huge foundation in this set, but we're working that top end. So this is go ahead, Gerry.
No, well, yes, but then again, if you look at the complete structure of the session, there's still a fair amount of volume in the workout.
Yeah.
So we can't look at these as just a little piece in a workout, because you have to look at and go, wait a minute, there's still endurance here. Remember, you're still working out for an hour or longer, so there's a fair amount of endurance in this session also. But the specific sharpening portion is in there because we're getting our athletes ready to be prepared to retake that 1,000 and be able to swim fast, super fast for a 100. Because you still need to build speed, because ultimately, and we talked about this in the past, but it's always good to review. If you came in and you can swim 1 minute and 40 seconds for 100, okay, let's sort of call that the average triathlon speed, if there's such a thing as an average, for 100 yards, and you're unfit, and you just swam all of your workouts, you then did 5 100s, and then you're able a few weeks later to do 10 100s, and then you do 15 100s, and you're always taking 10 seconds rest between each one. Eventually, you'll get up to 20 100s and 30 100s and so on, but you'll still be swimming 140. You can just do more 100s. So you're building your endurance so you can complete your half Ironman swim, you can complete your Ironman swim, but you're not going to be any faster. So we have to work different systems, right, to be able to actually improve performance in addition to just endurance.
Agreed. Great.
We want that 140 person to get to 120, 115 for an all-out 100.
Yeah, you can't just, you keep banging your head in the wall without finding a more efficient way to go around it. You're not going to get anywhere. You just keep banging your head in the wall. So, we add all these ingredients into the pot, but the problem is, and we're going to get this into the open water skill building phase. And I want to get Andrew's take on this, but I want to ask Emily something quick first. But the problem is a lot of these athletes go into these phases without taking the time to build the foundation phase. So they still just spin their wheels because they don't have the structure and, that platform to build off of.
Jim, I think the sport has gotten to a point that I have some issues with from a coaching perspective, at least. And part of it's a commercial side, and I understand that, where you have these 8, 10, 12-week training plans. And a 12-week training plan, an 8-week training plan does not, if somebody wants a good performance and wants longevity in the sport and to be well skilled, those are not by anywhere close to being optimal for any athlete to be using, except for someone who has a tremendous foundation in the sport. We can take Andrew Talansky and put him on a 12-week training program because he has been a professional athlete with a massive background. We can take you or Emily any of you guys, any of us, all four of us, and put us in these types of programs, it would be successful for us. But for the majority of athletes who don't have the types of endurance backgrounds that anyone here has, those plans won't be successful because there's not enough time to really develop skill. And skill in all three sports, needless to say, in swimming, especially when it comes to sighting. I'm going to give you a specific example. I got a phone call a couple of months ago from an athlete. I wish Jack was on here. He'd really appreciate this. This guy was a former swimmer and a pretty decent collegiate swimmer, 47, 46 seconds for 100 yards, pretty decent swimmer for, back 20 years ago or so. And he swims now at about a 105 pace per 100 in workouts. If he's doing, say, 15 or 2100s on 115, he can hold 105s. So this is a very good athlete. But he doesn't perform well in his races in the swim. And he called me up as a referral, and we started chatting. I said, let me see a video. Just send me a quick little video. We did a 30 seconds, quick review. And then there was nothing in that video that I could tell. And then I said, could you send me a quick 30-second video of you sighting? And he sent it to me, and his sighting was abysmal. And he is a 105 per 100 swimmer in the pool, but the moment he started sighting, and I then had him time himself, he was 5 seconds per 100 slower once he introduced sighting. So he then became a 110 per 100 swimmer. And that 110, by the way, would depreciate over time, meaning he may be able to swim 110s with sighting for the first 600, 700 yards, 800 yards, and then he would become fatigued, and he would then even start swimming slower. So here's a good athlete in swimming, but unskilled with sighting, where his performance was dropping off almost 10% when he introduced sighting. So this is why building the skill portion carefully takes time. And our skill building phase is a phase that starts off with 4 weeks, but then it rolls through the rest of the season, which is 3 or 4 months into that race ready phase.
Well, before we move into your skill building phase, which you want to move to so quickly, I'm not done with sharpening phase yet, because I want to get to Emily. Emily, I'm just going to share a screen again. So we have these comments that our swimmers leave for us, and don't worry about the specific comments. I'm just showing an example of the comments that they leave after the workouts. They have the option to communicate with our coaches, so they can leave their times, ask questions, whatever it may be. They have the option to do this. And Emily answers a lot, as we all answer we answer back to athletes on this, all the coaches of Tower 26. But Emily, when you're looking at the athletes, especially in the sharpening phase, when you're looking at the athletes' results, they put their times in and say they do 8 100s and they're coming in at 130, and then they go to 8 50s and they're coming in at 45 seconds. I know it's off the cuff, but what do you say to an athlete like that? There's no quicker swimming as the distance go down and maybe the efforts go up. What are you going to say to an athlete like that? I know all situations are different, but especially in this phase of training where, we want them to get ticking over on that sharpening phase.
Yeah, I think I probably talk about, increasing the cadence, which our tempo, which is we introduce the tempo trainers, and as the distances get shorter, we need to get more efficient bringing that cadence up. So it might be working on that cadence, because if, a 200 versus 100 versus a 50, your tempo is going to change. So working on that, making sure that you're not spinning your wheels in terms of losing power as you increase cadence. It's that balance there. And I think it's learning how to swim hard. And I think that that's what the sharpening phase does. Like if you're always swimming 90 seconds per 100 and you don't ever try to go 120, it seems like it's a huge jump. But sometimes I think if you do that sharpening phase, maybe you do a master swim meet and you get in the water and you dive in and you're swimming an all-out 100 next to, 6 other people in your heat. I think you kind of level up and you realize what swimming really hard is and what that feeling is. And I think that sharpening phase, doing some of the broken swims that we do, can offer that feeling. And then you kind of readjust things a little bit. And I think that that's a big gain that we get in the sharpening phase, is kind of readjusting our expectations of what hard swimming is and being comfortable swimming that hard.
Yeah. And we hear all the time, I only have one speed. You really don't. You got to realize you have a higher top end and a lower low end. So we always in all of our workouts, we talk about 70, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100% effort. And we work through all those effort levels, especially, as we hone in on sharpening phase or foundation phase. We might work lower end, we might work higher end. But that brings us to this is just a month. And then we go into the open water skill building with Gerry, is just chomping at the bit to talk about. But I'm not at you yet, Gerry. I'm going to talk to Talansky because he came from cycling. The guy didn't swim a stroke for 35 years. And he jumps in, and all of a sudden we build a foundation, and we get into open water skill building. What's your experience with when you went through this progression?
Well, we have to tell the truth, Jim. I swam very poorly it was either a year or two in middle school, but I wasn't very fast. But for all practical purposes, I mean, that was a little bit of swimming when I was younger. I was not exceptional by any measure, any objective measure. And then I raced my bike from, 17 onwards. I ran before that. So I'd been out of the pool for a very, very long time. My experience was honestly incredible through the program. I mean, it's how I met you, how I met Gerry, but the approach was, I think, what allowed me to swim to the level I did, which was, I think, pretty good, getting the most out of myself during my couple years in triathlon, because I was not an exceptional pool swimmer, even in the Tower 26 program. I mean, Gerry would tell you that. You saw me swim, everything. And yeah, I could nail decent times in the workouts, and I loved watching myself improve. But what always blew me away was how I would stack up with people who had much better times in the pool during workouts compared to my own ability, whether you're comparing 1,000 time, 100 time, just general workout times. Yet you put me in the race, and all of a sudden I was able to get out with them, get on the feet, get in the right group, feel comfortable, and settle in there. And it allowed me to, I think, punch above my weight or swim beyond what my pool swimming ability would indicate. And that was due to this program. That was due to all of the open water stuff we focused on. And I mean, really, it was, we were talking about it earlier today. It actually blows my mind a little to think that I got in the pool not having swam since I was maybe like 11 years old. Yeah. So almost 20 years. And then after, 5-6 months, you guys had me swimming 25 and change half Ironmans. I mean, that wasn't, yes, there's some genetic athletic ability in there, but if you see my body type, if you see me swim, I'm not some naturally gifted body type predisposed to swimming. I have maybe an engine, but it was you guys that helped me get that out on race day.
So Gerry, when you talk about open water skill building, what was let's get into peeled onion. Where do we start? Why did we start with what we start with? Where was your head at when you built that into this point in the season, let's say 3 weeks from now in the season long progression?
Well, when you look at from the athlete's perspective, right? Let's remove the coach's lens for a moment. You go from the athlete's perspective, you get into this open water segment of your race. Most folks are highly intimidated. They haven't swam much in open water, and they're low in skill. So what we've done, therefore that creates fear, okay? General anxiety. So the objective for me as a coach was, how do we help reduce that anxiety and relieve that fear? And I call it the 3 F's. We move from fear to familiarity through frequency. And that means frequency of preparation in the sense of building skills. The 3 F's, from fear to familiarity through the frequency of doing the exercises and the skills that are needed. What are those skills? Well, as we know, any particular race, most folks, no matter what they say, prior to a race, the moment that gun goes off, or the moment your wave leaves, or even if you're doing single departures now at the races 5 seconds apart, whatever it may be, everybody, it's the same. They all go fast at the beginning, although they say they're not going to. There's just that excitement of getting the day started. So if you're going to do that on event day, you may as well build that into your practice sessions. You should. So we go through step by step by step, a very progressive methodology as to all the things that are going to occur in the open water segment of your race. You obviously have to build sighting into it. You have to be able to change gears, change effort levels, how to turn buoys, the frequency of breathing. What if there's choppy water? How do we deal with that? So all of these pieces have to be built in, and we have to develop the skills, which ultimately is familiarity. since we're talking about the Paris-Roubaix prior, you need to have some amount of riding is going to be done on those cobblestones, right, Andrew? In some form of preparation,
Yes.
as opposed to just showing up and getting the crap beat out of you. So it's the same here, Jim. It's a real progressive way of creating familiarity for all of these skills. So on event day, you're not fearful. We've reduced anxiety. You're actually prepared, and you say, "Hey, I'm ready to do this."
Well, let's
And
show
also,
open
one
water
of the
skill
most
building
important
workout. Sorry,
is
go
to
ahead, Gerry.
one of the most important things is to finish the swim fresh, feeling I'm ready. I'm really ready to get on my bike, and I haven't been taxed.
Yeah, and that's what it's about, fresh. And what is our tagline? With a tagline that says something like that. But here's an open water skill building workout we did a couple of years ago. And Gerry, can you see this or not?
Yes.
You see what the main set is? I'm just checking.
Yes.
Need your glasses. Put the glasses on.
Well, you got that in small print there, but for a 60-year-old man, believe it or not, I don't need glasses.
Oh, small print. Look at that. Oh, I can make it bigger print. Look at that. Who knows?
There you go.
Learn something new every day. You guys have the Christoph. Guy thinks of everything. All right. So you look at the main set. We have 12 50s, 3 sightings per 25. That's 6 sightings per 50. 6 times 12 is, I have no idea. I don't do math, but that's a lot of sightings.
Here's a perfect example. So there's a 400 pull. So let's stream this down to sort of the your average range triathlete. It's about a 200 or a 300 longest. So it's about 5 minutes of lower effort pulling. So that's all technical at a lower output. And then we go into the set of 12 50s. And in your example, or you just said, Jim, it's 3 sites per 25, right? So that's 6 sites per 50. There are 12 of those. So that's 72 sightings. And we did the set 3 times through. So 72 times 3, what is that? 72 times 3. Emily, come on.
216.
Exactly.
Come on.
Yeah.
260.
Exactly. Sightings in that main set, 216 of them. And believe it or not, Gina, our race preparation phase, there is sighting in every single workout except our warm-ups, except our recovery workouts on Mondays.
Yeah, so that's frequency, right? You have frequency. So you get in the open water, you start racing, it's just boom, 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 no problem. You just work it right into your stroke because you've done it session after session after session. But if we were to do that in January before, obviously there's foundation there, there's people coming into the program at all times. That's why we work in technique, we work in foundation. But the reason you've built the progression as you have is because the more of that foundation you have, the more you can really focus on the smaller aspects, such as sighting or whatever other open water skill building we're working on that week or in that period of time.
And it takes time, like anything else. Any skill takes a fair amount of time to become pretty good at it. And the example earlier with that gentleman, there's a good swimmer, a 46-second, 100-yard swimmer in the pool, and had no sighting skills.
Yeah, and I actually saw that off of Oceanside a couple weeks ago, or that happened a couple weeks ago. I saw some athletes who are pretty darn good swimmers have a tough time with that sighting. And it's the first race of the season, so you don't expect everybody to have a huge grasp on it, but that's why we progress, and we want that where the big chunks of races happen, and that, mid to later half of the year, that's where you're really focused on, getting the most out of your performance.
And which is why I think these 12-week plans or 10-week plans they're difficult to develop and harness good skills, right, especially if you're in your first 2 or 3 years of triathlon.
Andrew, looks like there's something on your mind. What do you got?
No, just everything you're talking about in regards to skill building. I mean, I think you think about other sports, you think about even the bike portion of a triathlon, you're not going to show up and ride in your aero bars for the first time on race day. You're going to be prepared to do that. You're going to have trained in that position. You're going to have practiced eating and drinking in that position. You're going to practice these basic skills. You're going to have gone around corners on that bicycle, not just your road bike. And that, it blows me away that within triathlon, from the exposure I had during my time in it, how that open water specific skill set, to me, it's almost like a different sport compared to just pure pool swimming. The skill set you have to develop to thrive in triathlon with all these people around you, with sighting, with popping up and running through transition after, with sometimes running in with a beach start. It's so different. And so many programs only address the swimming in the pool in a very static environment aspect. And that's, I mean, it's to me, that's the equivalent of somebody, you tell them, hey, train on your road bike on the hoods for 3 months, and then, okay, race day, hop on your time trial bike and good luck today and see how it goes.
Yeah,
so
we
yeah,
just
I mean,
talked about
specificity.
We talked about how important transitions are. We do deck ups just for that very reason. You know, I mean, you might not be the fastest swimmer, but if you can get every second out of transition, Gerry, what did you say? You said something good. I can't think of it right now.
It's free time.
Free time, right? Free time. So if you can practice the deck ups like we practice every session when we're in that phase of training, practice those deck ups and get that free time out of transition, you could be 5-10 seconds per 100 slower than one of the other swimmers, but beat them out of transition. And who cares, right? Like it's free time. You're making up time. You got to realize that's part of the race. So prepare for it. Emily, you got a question? Is the question come on Facebook? What do we got?
Yeah, we had a question come in. Someone who's missed part of the base phase just due to a kind of crazy work schedule, probably didn't get that consistency in, and wondering now work is a bit more manageable. Should they go back to include this base building workouts into what they're doing now, or just keep on with the program as it's written?
You stay with the program as it's written, because remember, the focus at the moment, since we're talking about skill building a moment ago, if the focus is on skill building, there's still a tremendous amount of endurance and base being built into the overall plan. So remember, it takes a full year, minimum 1 year, to develop any decent athlete. We all know this. It's 3, 4, or 5 years, right? So don't cut corners. Hop in where we are. You'll get through an entire year. You'll go through 2 or 3 seasons, and then you're able to teach the stuff.
Exciting stuff. All right. What else? What I missed, Gerry? We got to touch on anything else with sharpening open water skill building? Where do we want to go?
No, I think you're good. It's all about careful progression and consistency, right?
Gerry, I want to know, were you the first person to come up with a deck up? Where did the deck up come from?
I'm sure there were folks who've done these types of things before, but I believe we may have been, at least in triathlon, the first folks to incorporate them into our training sessions and do them the way we currently do them, which is a little bit different, and with the running segment added to it. The objective was just to mimic and be very specific to what occurs in your race, so that once you exit the water, your heart rate doesn't blow up. So we created those deck ups.
Didn't you guys know when Gerry went to Pepperdine, his nickname was Deck Up Rodriguez? That's what they called him, Deck Up Rodriguez. Right? Hey,
I was a guy that, believe it or not, for a shorter guy who did more endurance stuff, had a pretty decent jumping ability. Emily would appreciate this. I could run off the pool deck, jump, and lay my goggles on the flags. That much hang time.
Wow. Air Rodriguez, we'll call you.
That's right.
Forget Jordan, man. You should have some Speedos named after you or something. But I'm going with Deck Up Rodriguez. All right, Emily, anything else on this phase of training, being that you are the voice of the subscription program?
I'm the voice of the subscription program. I think it's also good to mention that in this phase of training, and Gerry can kind of expound on this, we mentioned kind of putting away your Garmin watches, your Form goggles. Why do you advise doing that during this sharpening phase?
Putting those tools away?
Yeah.
We need feel. I mean, there's what happens on event day if your Form goggles gets knocked off of you? What happens on event day if we lose those tools also for some reason? We have to be prepared. And so much of training today, Emily, and you would appreciate, well, all of us are old enough on here to appreciate that the sport has moved to pretty high metrics and everything being driven by almost precision, to the point of we tend to perhaps ignore feel a lot. And feel, in my opinion, the art side of it is way more important than this highly defined technical area that the sport has moved into. It is a wonderful tool to have and should be used. There are certain times of the season not to use it.
Yeah, I like to think like go by feel, look at the data later. And then, because oftentimes I think a lot of people look at the data and let them tell them how they are feeling based on that. Like, oh, my numbers are bad today. This is a terrible day. And it might not be. it might just be, oh, it's going to take you a little bit to warm up and feel better, and you could still have an amazing day. So I think it's, use the data, but don't let it dictate how you feel. Go by feel first.
You manage the tool rather than having the tool manage you.
Oh, that's good. That is really good, Rodriguez. I like that. Manage the tool. Don't let it manage you. All right, let's go to the workout of the episode. We already showed a couple workouts of the episode, but let's bring up one official one so I could show you guys what it looks like. And it's a sharpening phase workout. There's one thing I really want Gerry to hone in on when he talks through it real quick, and I'll stop him when I'll stop you. I'll say, hey, that's what I want you to hone in on right there. But the workout of the episode today, I will share the screen. I'll show you coaching.tower26.com. I'll make the text big here for you, Gerry. Is that big enough? Look at that.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's skip the warm-up. Obviously, you guys can get through the warm-up, pay attention to all that. We've got some technique stuff, some foundation stuff, but let's just get to the main set here. Gerry, what's this main set on this workout?
Yeah, this is a favorite workout of mine, coaching it, and also as when I raced. It's now remember, these workouts are or should be scaled for ability levels. So this is for a level 1 athlete, which would be your Andrew Talansky pro level athlete. And then you would scale that about 85%, 75%, 66 and 2/3% as you go down in ability levels. So let's give some reference points. Somebody that can do an Olympic distance race in 2 hours or faster, you're a level 1. Somebody in 205 to 230, you'd be level 2. 230 to 245, 250, you're level 3. And 250 and slower, you're a level 4 athlete, as an example. So this is a level 1, 1625s. Notice the output level, 90%. And then there's an interval there. Then we have a short break, 400 in this case, at 70%. So the effort gets reduced significantly, minute rest, and then the 2 cycles through. And this is main set number 1. There are actually 2 main sets in this workout. So high cadence, high intensity. You're getting 10 or 15 seconds rest between those 25s. So you are forced for about 8 minutes to stay at a heart rate that's super high. Then you'll recover for 5 or 6 minutes, and then you'll repeat it 2 cycles through. So that's the first set, Jim. Also on that, when you're doing those 25s, we're using the tempo trainer, and we're using that as a gauge to help you increase your cadence and try to keep it elevated. So and we've all by this point, we've already taught our athletes they've learned what their current tempo is, and we've taught them also how to increase that tempo. We've done training things to help them elevate tempos at certain efforts. So we pretty much have an idea of where they need to be on a set like this, given that the distance is short. And we have them, each person set their levels. And the levels we have in this example are anywhere from 75 to 85 strokes per minute across the board. And you want to maintain that cadence throughout all of the 25s. And then you can shut the tempo trainer off, do your recovery for 5 or 6 minutes, and then repeat the set twice.
And then the second part of the main set, I haven't stopped.
So the second part is very, very specific for what we're preparing for, which is we're ultimately at the end of our sharpening phase, we're going to redo a time trial of a 1K and a 100. So this is about basically taking the 100, which is the speed segment, and breaking it down. It's a one broken 100.
Stop.
Where
this is what I want you to focus on. The broken 100. Go ahead.
Yep. We break it at the 25 and then the 50 and then 25, 75, 25. So it's a 25, then you swim a 50. So you break again at the 75 portion, and then a final 25. And we take 5 seconds rest after that first 25, and then just 10 seconds rest at the 75, and then the final 25. And the reason we break it, it's to take this 100 and have it mentally into 3 segments. The first 25, we want that to be John Wooden, Coach John Wooden, very famous basketball coach, has many wonderful sayings, but one of them is, be quick without being hasty. Be quick without being hasty. So in other words, we want good tempo, good takeout speed, but you don't want to be scurrying on that first 25. So there are certain things we have to manage. We don't want to be over kicking, because kicking doesn't generate a ton of propulsion for triathletes and it blows up the heart rate. So it's the first 25 is getting set up. We're still going pretty fast. Short break. And then that middle 50, we're going to build the effort to max output by the end of that 75. So that middle 50, you're starting off for the speed you were going in that first 25 when you're building up to all out effort to the 75. You have 10 seconds rest. And then the last 25, I call it the will to win. It's what do you have left here to get you through that final 25, focusing on great mechanics, all the things that we've worked on earlier in the season. Because at your top end speed, Andrew can tell you this, when you're really blowing it as hard as you can, technique starts falling apart as fatigue sets in. So you really have to focus on the technical segment of it. So 3 parts to that 100. And then we have a recovery 50, recovery 100, recovery a few minutes. And then we do that 5 cycles through. So this is a fairly high intensity. It's short. If you added it up, what's the total duration of this, total distance of this set? It's 750 yards. That's it. But 500 of it is a premium output, but very, very highly focused.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of athletes just, they don't know what it is to swim fast. You go say swim a fast 100 by the last 25, they're really struggling to get through that 25. The way you've broken it up, take those slight rests, you reset, recover slightly, so you can really learn to turn those arms over for the entire 100 when you put it together and you know what that feeling is. So I think that's a great way to approach that 100 and get the feel for what it is to keep the speed up over the course of an entire 100 when you string it together.
Yeah, and also that helps give somebody some perspective of what it should look like and things to think about as opposed to just hit the power button and go. Because for most triathletes, this is going to take 1 minute and 15 seconds to 2 minutes and 15 seconds, right? So that's a long time to be totally anaerobic.
That's right.
If you went all out from the beginning.
Embrace it. Love it.
Blow up.
Right. All right. Go to coaching.tower26.com. Check out that and more workouts. We got a swim video analysis from George Isles. George is one of our athletes over here at Tower 26. He sent me, and I'm sharing it to show because I want to make a point here. Emily, Gerry, Andrew, you guys see something, comment on it. Let me make sure you guys can see it first. Let me make sure this all works. Can you see that right there? Everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to play it. Let me turn off the sound on this. I'm going to play it and you guys just take it in for a second. I'll slow it down in a second. That's Middleton. He's going to put the camera on George coming straight at us, right? So there's George. It's not a very long clip. Looks okay, right? Everything looks all right. Nothing too crazy. You want to see it again?
Yes.
There's Middleton.
Could you slow it down?
Here we go. I'm not slowing it down yet. I want everybody to take it in real quick. Okay. Now I'll slow it down, right? I'll slow it down. I'll bring it. Just got to manually do this.
All right. I got it.
Okay. Gerry, what do you got?
So he swims fairly well. He's very soft, very gentle. He's got a fair amount of petting the kitty going on, meaning the tension that he's using to swim is fairly low. I'm not sure what effort he was asked to swim at here, but the tension is low. But here's the key thing. He has this very nice, long, extended stroke at the very beginning. And right there it is. And as you see that, you can pause right there. What happens right there, this is a very, very common error. I call this the soggy elbow. And you notice as he's gliding out front on his right side with his right arm extended, his little finger starts pointing to the bottom of the pool. So it's almost his hand is turned sideways. Call it the karate chop for a second. And once you get into that position, what typically happens is the elbow drops down. And if you notice right there, his elbow is beneath his wrist. So he is in the non-optimal position for a setup to be able to create propulsion. So first things first, never let your fingertip point towards the bottom of the pool. Make sure at a minimum, your palm is flat or your hand is rolled slightly inward where if it's anything, have your thumb turned down slightly. So it wouldn't help minimize the chances of your elbow dropping down like his has. Because in this position, he's not going to be able to get into any sort of power phase for quite a while. So let's speed up, Jim, and see what happens with that arm stroke. I'll slowly go forward. And then pause. If you can back up. Yeah. So throughout this entire stroke, yeah, there is, yeah. So there's about everything wrong going on there, right? He's never quite got a hold of the setup never took place. So look here again, the elbow is beneath the wrist. So with the elbow beneath the wrist, and he's already halfway into the stroke, no lats are engaged. So the main power muscle that generate propulsion for you is not engaged. One more step. Yep. So he gets a little bit of propulsion, a little bit of power out of that right arm at the end. The left arm here is much, much better. He's set up quite a bit better because he doesn't glide out as much in the front as he did with the right arm. So we need to work on, George needs to work on the setup of his stroke better. And then he needs definitely some more non-petting the kitty. So, and what does that mean? Petting the kitty means that the gentleness that he's swimming with is too soft. It's too delicate. It's too sweet. Needs a little more toughness in there.
Good. Emily, you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And you could see as he was pulling through his stroke, his elbow was very deep in the water, and you want that elbow up towards the surface. So that is just an indication of how far that elbow had dropped down below. And I like to think of it as like close, like your armpit is closed. Like I want to see nice open armpits as you swim, and you have to have that elbow up to be able to do that. If you're kind of like when you open a door, your armpit's closed, and that's not how you want to swim because there's just no leverage on the water.
So Jim, simple rule of thumb. Ready? The elbow is always above the wrist at every single point throughout the swim stroke.
Be opening doors like this. Be opening doors.
That's right.
With elbow up. That's why Andrew. That's how he gets so fast. He just walked around like this all day.
That's right.
All right, good one. Thanks for sending that in, George. We appreciate that. Remember, guys, get us, email me, jim@tower26.com, send it to my Facebook Messenger, get it to me somehow, Instagram, however you find Jim Lubinsky, send it to me, and we'll get you on the next swim video analysis. We're going to try and do that every single episode. I'm going
to owe George a bottle of wine for beating him up again twice in a row.
Oh, we all stayed in the same house at Oceanside. You were beating him up for the weekend. It's crazy because you looked at that beforehand. And, oh, man, it was over. All right, we have time for one question. So which question is it going to be? Let's roll the dice. Question 1 or question 2, Talansky? What do you think? Come on.
Just pick one.
Just say 1 or 2.
2.
All right, jim@tower26.com. Write your questions. Hey, Jim, Gerry, Emily, Andrew. This came into me at jim@tower26.com. It says, first off, love the podcast, such valuable information and insight you guys bring to the triathlon community. I also just purchased Gerry's book, which has been a great read. And I'm still I'm still waiting to do the audio version. So Gerry, let's set that up, huh? You frequently mention the use of tech paddles to improve one's vertical forearm, feel, and catch in the water. It's a peculiar looking device, very different from the traditional paddles out there. The manufacturer's website and video content seems, let's skip that part. I was wondering if you might do a video podcast on the proper use of tech paddles and how to gain maximum benefit from their usage. Perhaps there's some video of Jim, definitely not me. You don't want any video of me with tech paddles, or one of your Tower 26 members in the water practicing with them, along with commentary on what to expect, what to feel, and how to incorporate them into swim workouts. If not a full podcast, perhaps a YouTube video or something on your Tower 26 channel. Thanks for your consideration. Dr. Keith Say of Washington, D.C. Is that D.C.? Washington, D.C.? Okay.
Yeah. Keith, thanks for the question. Dr. Keith. Dr.
Keith. Doctor.
Yeah.
Doctor.
I think that would be super helpful. Let's plan on doing that sometime next year. I know that's another season out. I want to see the quality of those paddles improve. We used them for a couple of seasons and we stopped using them because we had the quality issues with the product. So that's being worked on. So we do not currently use them. In fact, we have our members close their hands and do old-time fist swimming, which sort of gives you the same, somewhat close to the same purpose that you're looking for, the outcome of the tech paddle. But that tech paddle is, I think, single-handedly the best paddle for.
Well, what is even though it's something that we can't use right now because of production, but what is the benefit of you? Why is it so beneficial?
Well, one, all paddles, or most paddles, not all, but the great majority of paddles, you place your hand, the palm of your hand on a flat surface, right? This particular paddle, it's a spindle that you hold. So you cup the spindle. So your hand is wrapped around the spindle to create a fist. And then the paddle itself is against your wrist. And it goes out to the sides like this, showing the example. So there's a spindle you hold on to, and the paddle is here, creates a surface area that allows you to help you to and it prevents you from bending your wrist. You can't turn your wrist downward, internal rotation, or outward. You're in this fixed position, because many people have, and George was an example of his hand going too much one way. So there's certain things you can't do with that paddle. So it sets you correctly. And then it also teaches you where to apply force. Many of us just think of the palm only as the force applicator, but it is the palm, but it's also the wrist and also the forearm. So there are many wonderful applications for that paddle.
Okay. All right. Well, we will keep you guys in the loop as to when we start using them again. But yeah, I thought that it definitely, I mean, that wrist breaking, George was a good example of it, but I mean, just see that across the board. It helps you keep the elbow up. So, so we look forward to working those back in. But thanks for the question, Keith. Jim at tower26.com. Gerry, what else?
Yeah. And by the way, in the interim, there's another paddle called the Infinity paddle. It's made by Finis, Finis, and it's shaped like the infinity sign. And you can use that paddle, and that will also help keep your hand in the correct position.
Okay, so we have some options. But okay, thanks for that, guys. What are we going to talk about next episode, Jer? Any idea? That's up to me.
Yeah, you're the boss. You'll let us know.
We'll let you know. We'll send out an email, and we'll let you know. We'll keep these every 2 weeks. Andrew, anything else from you?
No, I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed swimming under Gerry, and I always enjoy hearing him talk about the whole sport of triathlon, but especially swimming. It's such a nuanced sport, and there's so many ways to improve it that it's always educational and fun.
Literally every time Gerry swam, Andrew will be underneath him looking up. Hey, Gerry.
Oh, I was so excited when Gerry would get in the water. Those were the best Wednesday swims. I was over the moon.
The best. Emily, anything else from you?
Nope. It was great to be back talking swimming.
That's it, Gerry. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for taking the hot seat.
Thank you, buddy. Congratulations. Episode number 100.
100 in the bank. Here's to 100 more, guys. For Andrew Talansky, Emily Cox, Gerry Rodriguez, this is Jim Levitsky, the Tower 26 B Race Rate Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Bye.